Welcome to the Denver Gazette Sports Podcast. I am your host, Chris Schmedeke. Today, we are brought to you by Applewood Plumbing, Heating, and Electric. They are the proud sponsor of the Colorado Avalanche, as well as of this podcast. And today, we're talking Denver Nuggets with Vinny Benedetto, who, Vinny, I want to ask you real quick. Are you going to tell me that you'd vote for someone else to host this podcast?
I would not do that to you, Chris. I mean, if I did, I guess you'd want me to say it to your face.
Well, yeah, yeah. All right. So let's talk. Let's start with the halfway good before we get into the Nuggets being down 0-2 to
Mhm.
Minnesota. Nikola Jokic wins his third MVP in the last 4 years. Yesterday, Vinny, this puts him in a group of players that are some of the greats in the NBA.
Yeah, it's all kind of unbelievable when you look at, the big picture and consider, where he was drafted, where he was at physically when he came over to the NBA. And now he's one of those guys you just need, one name to refer to, like Magic, Bird, MJ, LeBron, and now Joker.
Well, and I saw a picture of him and Malone, like I think maybe Joker's first year, and it is really amazing, like the transformation. Honestly, both of them have gone through.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy. So I made that joke about voting for someone else at the beginning. Nikola Jokic has an interview with TNT. He has an interview with Shaq, who has been a big supporter of Nikola in the past, talking about how he didn't vote for him and voted for Shea, but congratulations. It was all just very awkward and weird.
Yeah, it was weird sitting in the media room while while the interview was going on. I can say we're not the only people in Denver who thought that whole interaction was a little odd, and somebody else had hypothesized that it might have something to do with the number of MVPs Shaq has won.
Yeah.
And it's not three for those inquiring. And I mean, he's probably got a case to have another MVP in or two on his resume, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say Joker isn't deserving of the three and four when you look at just what he's been able to do, the efficiency, um, the first two he really carried the team, while it was shorthanded, and the one year he didn't, obviously he wins the championship and the finals MVP. So it's not like we're just, handing these out to a guy who puts up empty stats. Like the stats combined with the eye test, combined with the team success, it's pretty easy to make the case for Joker being the MVP in each of, three of the last four seasons. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who could say in four of the last four seasons
Right.
he probably should have been the MVP. So I don't know if the voters need to feel too guilty about giving him a third in 4 years.
Do you think Shea has an argument? I know they were the top seed. He had that 30-point streak. Um, I don't know. I don't think no one affects the game like Nikola Jokic, I guess.
Right. Um, yeah, and I just don't think anyone has, and shoulders as much responsibility for their team's success. Shea is obviously great. Like it's I don't want to, make Joker's case by tearing down Shea, like because
Right.
he's an incredible player and like deserved. He's going to be a first team All NBA guy, and he's still what 23,
4? 5?
four,
Yeah.
yeah, like um, yeah. So I mean, like he's got a case, like he finished second for a reason, but maybe it's because I watched so much of Joker, but yeah, it's just hard to deny that anyone has more of an impact on their team success than Joker.
Okay, let's flip to the bad. I guess we can just do that. Well, let's start with Jamal Murray. And, you guys got to talk to him yesterday. Was that yesterday? Yeah.
Yep.
About the heating pad throwing and just his frustration. He didn't want to talk about any of it.
No, and it's kind of a tough look for Jamal because
Yes. He's
people
getting
were
some
in
criticism today.
people were in the locker room post game looking to talk to him after game two, and it was the second straight game he left the arena without talking to reporters. So when we showed up at practice yesterday, a few people had questions about it, and he just didn't have anything to say. I mean, to his credit, he did say I take full responsibility, but after that, it was all on to the next, and he didn't have any interest in rehashing the events or explaining where like there was reason for him to be frustrated, reason for everybody to be frustrated, but um I think people wanted to hear a little more from him. And maybe it's one of those things where I don't know how much fans care, but I think there is a portion of people who care and would like to get a little bit more of an explanation than we did.
So he was fined $100,000. I didn't say that to begin with.
Yeah.
He's not suspended for game 3, which is good because if the Nuggets have any chance of winning, Jamal Murray has to play even on one leg. He's an emotional player. We've seen it. He kind of thrives on anger maybe at times during games. He kind of does stuff like that. But have you ever seen him like he was in game 2? I
No,
can't remember anything like that.
no. Yeah, and to your point, like he'll take um whether it's somebody trash talking or him being fouled in a way he didn't appreciate. He has typically had a way to turn that into a positive for his individual game and the team, to your point about playing with that emotion, playing with that fire. But um it just felt like um it started with the charge that
Yes.
wasn't called.
Yes.
And if I'm not feeling 100% and I put my body on the line to draw a charge from Karl Anthony Towns like that and it doesn't get a whistle, like I would be pretty frustrated too. But then it felt like it continued and like it just grew. There were times it felt like um where he was kind of using a possession just trying to get a foul call as
Yeah.
opposed to like running stuff, and he would force up an awkward shot um trying to highlight some contact, but just ended up without a whistle and costing the possession. So I think um, the frustration, reached a point we haven't seen with him before, and he, reacted in a way that um, cost him a lot of money, and I think very easily could have led to a suspension if you
Yes.
factor in. I did the pool report that night, and Mark Davis said the penalty, had they known that he threw the heating pad, would have been a technical foul. At the time, I didn't realize he had also thrown a towel.
No, I didn't. Was that on film anywhere? Is that on tape?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's if you search that's somewhere out there on Twitter and
I'm
or X.
sure. Okay.
Um, but then my line of thinking was, okay, if the heating pad should have been a technical, the towel should have also been a technical. Then you're at 2, and it could easily have been an ejection if they had noticed both of those instances in real time. Um, so yeah, I think if the NBA had decided to suspend him, that it would have been tough for the Nuggets to really say that was too harsh of a punishment.
Mark Davis in that game is, I mean, between Malone running to the foul line to yell at him, things being thrown at him, I don't know how he kept it together in that game. How was he in the pool report? Was he pretty much like, we called the game the way we called the game?
Well, yeah, so you have to, a little behind the scenes here, you have to like send the questions through NBA PR.
Okay.
So it's not like a free-flowing conversation. It is, here are the questions we have received, then I ask the questions. Um, and I'm sure they have time to formulate a response, having, I'm pretty sure he goes into the pool report knowing what's coming from a question standpoint. So there weren't any questions about the way the game was officiated at large. It was just about, a couple of those instances and getting an explanation for um, uh, just getting the officials' rationale for what they noticed, what they didn't, and what the punishments would have been.
Just to be clear, that was a foul on Karl Anthony Towns.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That looked like a pretty textbook charge to me.
Yeah. So I mean that was, but and going into game 3 now, like both games have been pretty physical. There has not been, a lot of ticky tack stuff. Ants probably got some calls, but it's weird. Like this is the first time, and you've covered this team now through a lot of this run. First time I've ever seen the Nuggets lose composure as a team. It just seemed very strange.
Yeah, and it's I think it kind of goes into the way they are being um the two games have been officiated. Like if the refs are letting stuff go and it's going to be a physical game, like I love that brand of basketball.
Yeah.
But it also it favors the Timberwolves in this series. They're longer, they've been more aggressive, they've been more physical. So I think it's kind of like, I mean, flipping it around a bit, like if the games were called so tightly and Joker shot 15 free throws a game, and everything's a foul, like Minnesota people would be irate.
Yep.
If Gobert and Towns were in foul trouble every night and Joker shooting, 15, 20 free throws, like that would obviously favor the Nuggets. So I think the combination of Minnesota's defense and then them the game being played that physically, like I think just it got to everybody. Like Malone probably should have gotten a technical for
Yeah, I don't know
on
how
Mark
he didn't.
Davis.
I don't.
And so like Jamal's infractions were the most egregious, but Aaron Gordon got teed up and kind of aired out his frustrations pregame. So it like for all the talk about Jamal, like he was far from the only one who kind of lost it a little bit. So I also think game three will probably be officiated a little differently
Yeah.
than the first two, just because if you're the NBA and you look at, things were pretty close to going off the rails there in game two a couple
Yes.
different times. So and then you just like watching the Dallas OKC game
I was going to bring that up.
the night after game two, it was just like sometimes it doesn't look like the same sport we're watching from series to series. So I would expect game three is just called a little tighter to see if they can help keep some of the emotions in check.
I think Mark Davis ref last night's
We
Knicks
did.
game.
Yep.
Did Brunson go to the line a ton? I think he did.
That was on during the Joker press conferences, so I was just kind of watching in the background, but just watching Jalen Brunson over the years, um, feels like it's safe to assume he probably got to the free throw line.
All right, so let's kind of just talk about game three. You know, Ant's going to get his. I think
Mhm.
we have decided that. But the fact that Cat has kind of dominated them, and I mean for probably 6 of the 8 quarters in Denver has been tough. But what does Denver do defensively? They don't have anybody to guard Edwards. I think we can assume that that's the case. But what do they do with Cat?
Yeah, the whole they just haven't had an answer for him, so I think you kind of gotta. I would keep Aaron Gordon on Cat
Yeah.
and say, hey, he just can't get 27, and you just rotate bodies on Ant.
You start blitzing him a little bit, get that ball out of Ant's hands.
Yeah, and just see if kind of like teams have done to Aaron Gordon, kind of daring him or begging him to shoot threes. I would take my chances with Jaden McDaniels on those and see if you can kind of
He was
see
0
if you
for
can win.
7 in game one, wasn't he? Or 0 for
Right.
6 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just see if they're spaced in a way where you can, blitz with whoever's guarding McDaniels and see if you can scramble a bit from there. But yeah, I think the easiest way for the Nuggets to get game three is say, like let Ant can get 40, nobody else can get 20, and
Yeah.
just see if you can um limit the other guys, because Towns has been good. They've gotten stuff, from guys off the bench in both games that have
Nas Reed should have got MVP votes. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, not Nas Reed is uh yeah, when the awards came out, I probably thought Malik Monk should have been sixth man of the
Yeah.
year, but Nas Reed is playing his butt off and deserves all the love he's getting, because he's been an X factor in the series, and probably shows why we had that coverage before the series about just how different this Timberwolves team is
Yeah.
this time around, because McDaniels defensively for sure, and Nas Reed on both ends really have both made an impact.
So the series isn't over. It feels bad. I mean, but I mean, the game one loss, I think, probably hurts Nuggets fans a little bit more because they tied at 84 or 94 or whatever it was, and then the Nuggets didn't execute in the clutch, and I think everyone was kind of like, "Oh, well, what's happening here?" Like, so what do they start doing on offense in game three? Because they're not getting the looks they want, and does it need to be Joker aggressiveness? Because I think that should be the plan.
I think that's their best bet, is to kind of force feed Joker early and often and see if Just and kind of like I was saying earlier, feel out how the game is going to be officiated. If it's called tighter, get the ball to Joker over and over again and see if he can, um, either score efficiently, draw some fouls, or at least force Minnesota to start doubling and switching up their defense a little bit. Because it just feels like there hasn't. I don't remember the last easy bucket the Nuggets scored. Like it looked like Jamal Murray, was going to drive for a dunk at some point
Yeah.
in game two and just lost the ball on the way up. So, um, anything they can do to get some easy offense, and I think nothing's easier for the team than get the ball to Joker, see if he can score, and he can't score, he'll
Well,
find a pass.
and I sit there and it seems like they've got a backcourt that has one leg each. And I think that that's really hurt them as well. By the way, I really love your Tribe Called Quest t-shirt. That's
Thank
outstanding.
you.
But um, but you know, how hurt are some of these guys? Like, is it fun? We know how hard it is to repeat. They played 102 games last year. And KCP's on one ankle. Jamal's got his calf thing. Joker's probably got his back killing him. Like, are they just tired? Are they just out of gas a little bit?
It feels like it, and like and Reggie Jackson had to be like
Oh,
carried
yeah,
off the
helped off.
court.
Yeah.
Um, and so I mean, you look at the three guys who are obviously not 100% for the Nuggets, and it's um, obviously Jamal Murray, number two scoring option, who is such an integral part to everything these Nuggets do, especially in crunch time. KCP hasn't been on the injury report, but uh, I'm not buying that he's completely healthy, and he was the guy who at least starts games on Anthony Edwards and, is expected to do a little bit better job than I think he's done so far. And, it doesn't feel like he's 100%. Reggie Jackson dealing with different stuff.
He's been hurt for a while. Like, that ankle
Right.
is not
And
good for a while.
he played all 82 regular season
Yeah.
games, which is pretty crazy given that I think he's close to my age. Um, And so, like the three guys who are clearly hobbled are three really important guys when you factor in Reggie's like the only other traditional kind of ball handler, and when you're dealing with the team who plays the kind of defense that Minnesota does, um, yeah, it's tough. And they'll say like, "Hey, it's the playoffs. Everyone's dealing with bumps and bruises and is banged up at this point." But like Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns don't look very banged up to me.
No.
Uh, Feels like they are in a better place physically than the Nuggets are. And yeah, I think to your point, like a short off season last summer, given obviously the championship, and then rolling right into the title defense where they're getting everybody's best shot um, on a nightly basis. I think has certainly been a new challenge. And the only thing I think they could have done differently is maybe just pull out of the race for the one seed a little bit earlier. That this is all hindsight being 2020. Like, I mean, the way I'm looking at it now, I could also, I think, make the other argument where the Nuggets should have really prioritized getting the one seed and being on the other side of the bracket from Minnesota.
Well, I was just going to say, after you said that, you talked about they don't want to be anywhere near Minnesota until the conference finals. Was this run to a repeat ended when they lost that weird San Antonio game?
I think you can make that case because, like, and maybe it was wishful thinking on other people's behalf that Phoenix would take care of the
Oh,
Timberwolves.
yeah.
Because I mean, like the matchup was interesting and they beat them. I think there were two like big
They blew them
Suns
out at least twice.
like late in the regular season. So maybe it
Yeah.
was one of those you put too much stock in what you see at the end of the regular season. Um, but yeah, I think like not to toot my own horn, but I've been on this Minnesota is the dangerous team for quite a while. And um, yeah, it's just something I think if the Nuggets don't pull off this comeback, it'll kind of be a what if, when we're podcasting 10 years from now and we're looking back at the 2024 season and it's like, hey, that repeat bid really would have had a better shot if they
Go New
they
Orleans, Dallas in the first two rounds.
yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, they played the Lakers in the first round, but every single one of those games, they fall behind double digits. They have to come back. It's two game winners. I mean, they probably would have swept New Orleans without Zion, you would have to imagine. And then we've always talked about they match up really well with Dallas. And, yeah, Wemby scoring what he scored 17 points in 3 minutes or whatever it was in that game.
Yeah.
And then, it just kind of and we also need to say Minnesota has not lost yet in these playoffs. I mean, they are 6-0.
And I was gonna say when you're talking about uh the Nuggets round one where they're playing heavy minutes just to take care of the Lakers in five, it felt like um Minnesota's first round kind of went the other way where it was close through 2.5 quarters. Then they kind of pulled away and they were able to kind of it felt like most of those games they were in control of in the fourth quarter against the Suns. And so they were, probably able to limit their starters minutes a little better than Denver's been able to in in each of their first 6 or 7 playoff games.
Real quick before we predict game three, and Anthony Edwards, people are comparing him to Jordan. Then he did the shrug, which was kind of funny. But it's tough to compare anyone to Michael Jordan. But is he
Yep.
Dwayne Wade? I think he's Dwayne Wade.
There's a good amount of that. You can just see it, like the explosive kind of shooting guard. But yeah, like I talked to Mike Conley because he kind of blew the young Michael Jordan thing up on a podcast appearance,
Yeah,
and I kind of wrote that story about how the Nuggets need to come up with the ant rules. Um, and
which are
Mike
clearly not
Conley
working.
not need a new rule book. But Mike Conley was saying he sees it in the MJ comparison with Edwards more like the mentality aspect of it, how he's just like an insane competitor. And like I'm sure Dwayne Wade is obviously was quite competitive in his own right, but anytime you're getting compared to MJ or Dwayne Wade and you're 22 years old, something's going right.
Yep. Yep. And they're going to be, I mean, they're going to be good for a long time. I mean, we didn't even mention that Rudy Gobert didn't play game two and he'll be back for game three,
Yep.
which will be a little bit different. So you're headed to Mini tonight, actually, for games 3 and 4. Mark Kizzle will be out there as well. He's going from Dallas tonight to Minnesota. so he's going to be all over the place. But what happens in Minnesota these next 2 games? What do you think?
Yeah, having covered quite a few games in Minnesota the last year or two, I can tell you that arena and having friends from the Twin Cities, that area is starved to
Yeah.
root for a contending championship kind of caliber squad. So I think the arena is going to be pretty crazy tomorrow night, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think I said Nuggets in 7 before the series started. I think I'm flipping that to Timberwolves in 6.
Okay.
So I think Minnesota rides a crazy home court advantage tomorrow night to a win. I think Nuggets get 4 and 5, and then go back to Minnesota and have it end there because just yeah, I mean, I would say I would say Nuggets in 7 would still be alive if Jamal Murray can hit a magic potion and be 100% healthy for games 3 and 4. I just they got 3 days off to see if they can get his calf feeling a little bit better, but those injuries are so tricky. I just don't know if the time is there for him to get close enough to 100% to really give the Nuggets a shot to pull off this comeback. So, yeah, I think Timberwolves win 3, Nuggets get 4 or 5, and then
They lose in 6.
and make one more trip to Minnesota and write the season obituary there.
I think it's going to be Timberwolves in 6 now too. I think the Nuggets get 3. I think that they just show maybe some championship thing, and then 4, Minnesota's like, no, we're better. We're going to take care of this. Like you said, Nuggets win game 5 and then lose in 6. Can Joker take the ball from A-Rod like he did Ishbia last year? Can we get something like that going on? That really seemed to get things going for the Nuggets when the Phoenix has not won a playoff game since that, right? I think that's true. I mean, since because Ishbia
Yeah.
came to Denver for game 5
Yeah.
and Joker messed around with him, and they hadn't won since. They lost those. So
Lost 5-6 to Denver in the first 4.
so maybe Joker needs to, I don't know, throw something at A-Rod or something,
Yeah.
and maybe that'll change the whole season, the whole fortune.
It might take something like that because I've done enough of these podcasts and radio last few days. People wondering how the Nuggets pull this off, and right now it's just hard to see the path to
It is.
getting back to the Western Conference Finals right now.
It is. It is. And it's you talked about it. They wanted nothing to do with Minnesota until they absolutely had to. And
Yep.
Minnesota, I mean, there was no need for being clutch in game two. But
Yep.
in game one, they were clutch down the stretch, and the Nuggets weren't. So it'll be interesting. All right, Vinny, thanks for coming on. You will have a full preview of the game this afternoon on denvergazette.com, and then full coverage from Minnesota on Friday. It's Friday, Sunday, right?
Correct.
Right. So 7:30 start tomorrow night, our time.
Yep.
Then what are they Sundays? Are they
I think
earlier?
6.
Yeah, it seems like I think it's earlier on Sunday.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have all that coverage at denvergazette.com. Subscribe to this podcast on Apple or on Spotify. And Vinny, we will catch up after the games in Minnesota. Let's hope we're not talking about the end of the season, but I guess we'll find out. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.